Good afternoon, everyone. This is Chris Riley with System Source. Thanks so much for joining us today for today's webinar. I'm also joined today by Chris Kuriger from Arctic Wolf. He'll be doing our presentation today. And so the question comes to us a lot about should I kind of buy a SIEM product, and there's many on the market, which is a security information and event management tool for tracking your security events and log ingestion, those types of things, versus should I have somebody else do it? So one is it's kind of a buy build sort of thing. Should you get the tools and processes and people to do it yourself, or should you use combine that with an external partner to be able to help you with that? So we get that question a lot, and today we'll help kind of understand what is a SIEM and what's it do, what's it for, regardless of who's kind of doing it, whether you do it yourself or do others, and then also consider what might be some of the advantages of having somebody else do it, and be able to kind of free up your time, be able to concentrate on some other things. So we'll kind of give you that information so that you can kind of make a well-informed decision for what you and your organization need, what's appropriate for you. A little bit on the agenda, we'll talk about a few introductions here, and then Chris will dive into kind of really starting with what is a SIEM versus a managed kind of security service. We'll look at some use cases, we'll look at pros and cons of both, we'll look at some of the standards that are out there, and also kind of some cost estimates as well. Hopefully you have your pizza right now, and we'll be enjoying that for the next 30 minutes as we do this webinar. If you don't have your pizza, just note Julie Dellinger's email address on the screen. If it hasn't shown up here shortly, go ahead and reach out to Julie. She'll try to help you out. All right, a little bit of housekeeping during the webinar today. The audio is in presentation mode, so that you'll be able to hear both of us today, Chris and Chris, but unfortunately we can't hear you. But the reason we do that is so that any background noise, music on hold, those kinds of things that may be coming through to participants don't come through the whole group. But you can reach me at any point during the session today. Reach out to me on the chat tab, and also any questions that come up, just drop those right into the questions tab. We'll save those up to the end, and then Chris can go ahead and answer those at the end of his presentation. We are recording this webinar, and we'll also send you both the link for the recording as well as the presentation. So you'll get that later on today. And there will be an evaluation. You can let us know how we did, but also we'll try to make it fun by giving you a $50 Amazon gift card for completing it. I'll do a drawing from completed ones, and then one person will get that gift card. That also gives you a chance to let us know what other resources that you might need. There'll be some suggestions, or you can write in anything that you might need, so that we make sure that this educational session is in fact that it's educational and helps answer your questions. So we do have some new folks to System Source joining us today. So just a little bit about System Source. So we've been around since 1983, and there's about 70 of us at System Source. We work with IT professionals from kind of South Central Pennsylvania all through Maryland down to the DC area. And so a lot of folks come to us when they need to first acquire technology, whether that's for end user computing or most of our work is in the data center today. And that data center can be the traditional on-prem, or it could be in all of its cloud or other variants, such as Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services, hosted facilities, software as a service, co-location services, where you have some of your servers or storage or other types of infrastructure at other locations. So our consultants work with folks to kind of design solutions for the data center, and then be able to implement and support those, whether they're on-prem and cloud or its other variants. We also, under Improve, we also have training, so about 600 plus classes at any one point on our training schedule across all the technologies that I've just mentioned, and about 2 or 3 dozen more, all available remotely. And where it says present is professional AV, so digital signage, Zoom rooms, WebEx rooms, Teams rooms, all the monitors, projectors, microphones, speaker systems, designing that all into those types of rooms, as well as auditoriums and even stadiums. And finally, we support all these things either on where it says maintain at the bottom. Either you call us when things go bump, whether it's during the day or during the night. You could, after hours, whether you have a contract or not with us, you can follow the voicemail, the voice prompts rather, in our system, and get support even after hours. So kind of on a reactive basis, or managed services where we are the IT departments or dozens of clients in this region, so that'd be a proactive type of service. We have a number of upcoming webinars that you can take a look at. One is AV for next week. And then we'll also be doing one on storage on April the 2nd. On April the 3rd, we'll be back to security-related topics on top 10 breach scenarios. And then if you're a golfer or just enjoy having fun, we'll be at Yellow Bolt Golf in Hunt Valley on the 10th for an indoor golf and also a kind of a Masters golf watch party. So if you're into that, please join us for one of these. These will all be in clickable versions of this. So you can get to the registration right off of the PDF that you'll get of this, or you can just go right to our website. So System Source and Arctic Wolf, we've been working together to develop and deliver seamless security solutions for our clients for over 4 years together. So we've been doing that across a variety of industries, from financial services, healthcare, education, nonprofits, engineering services. And while Chris will talk more about what some of the things that Arctic Wolf does today, we've done it in a variety of different types of industries. So Arctic Wolf is going to do a lot of the monitoring, detection, and response, or MDR, on a 365, 7x24 basis. So you're going to be looking for security events, doing vulnerability scanning continuously, and they can do that for either servers, endpoints, or both. So it's going to kind of alert for those types of things, and then you can either decide internally whether you want to kind of do the mitigation of those, or whether you want some help from us. We can assist with that. We can also do security planning, and of course do long-term resolution for any security issues that are identified. And with that, let me go ahead and turn things over to Chris.
Appreciate that, Chris. Want to introduce myself a little bit. Thank everybody for attending today. My name is Chris Curriger. I am an Arctic Wolf senior sales engineer. I've been at Arctic Wolf for a bit over 4 years, coming up on 5, but I've been 20 years plus in cybersecurity and networking businesses. Worked for an MSP, both in multiple MSPs, really, both in sales and engineering roles. And I actually originally hail from Mississippi, if you hear some of the accent there, but I'm now residing near Arctic Wolf headquarters in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Today, I really want to talk about 4 things. Firstly, what are the components of a SIEM? So for anybody who's not super familiar with the security of information and event management systems are out there, I'll talk about kind of what you have to put one together. Some of the pitfalls or issues that companies have had with traditional SIEM, especially small to medium organizations, but even larger organizations fall prey to some of these issues as well. I'll talk about NIST and how NIST 2.0 has kind of changed security operations, set a new bar for security for organizations. And then I'll talk a little bit about why companies would want to look at Arctic Wolf and what the advantage is there. Starting off, a security information and event management system is basically a log ingestion and log storage system at its core. But to do that, you need to make sure you're pulling all of your security logs. That's getting logs from a lot of different areas, making sure you're aggregating all of those different logs into a single spot. So whether that's pulling from cloud or pulling from local resources, maybe you've got multiple offices or multiple networks that need to be pulled together into this SIEM. You also need threat intelligence to compare some of what you're seeing versus where there's actually potentially an issue. If you're not running good threat intelligence, sometimes you buy that external threat intelligence. Some companies do have their own internal threat intelligence feeds. So there are a lot of different ways to get that. Really making sure to crowdsource your threat intelligence and have more than one source is extremely important to make sure you're avoiding the misses that you would have if you're just looking at a single source. Then the next step is really rules and alerting. You want to make sure that anytime there's a potential security issue, there's an alert that gets raised. So whether that is through SOAR and automation, that alert is addressed and triaged, or whether that's through the individuals in the SOC team or in the security team having to physically hands-on take a look at those alerts, you need to make sure those alerts are all raised. You can't really filter out too much, because if you filter out enough, that's where the bad actors will hide, is in the stuff that you've filtered out and aren't looking at. Speaking of triage, you've got to have engineers who are able to respond to live alerts 24/7 to do a sufficient job there. So whether that's somebody on call who will wake up if there's an alert, or if that's a team 24/7 of at least 3 or maybe 4 people. If you look at Gartner, they say that you need 12 individuals to properly staff a security operations center. And then lastly, response. Really the most important part once you've detected things is how do you respond? Because knowing about the incident doesn't protect you from it. You've got to have the ability to jump in, put that response in place, whether that's emergency containment, shutdown of systems, backup and DR, all of those things are involved in putting together a good SIEM and having that running properly. So as you can imagine, that's complex, and it comes with a few really big issues that companies struggle with. The first is the cost of ingesting all of that. The traditional model, you pay per gigabyte or per log source for what you're ingesting. So the more security tooling you put in place, the more secure you want to be, the higher the cost gets. Also, if you have an event where there are bad actors actively attacking your network or attacking some of your systems, that's going to create more logs. Think of a DDoS attack or a denial of service attack where you have a lot of requests coming into your firewall all at once. If those are coming in, you're logging everything that's there. That could balloon that cost. And then the last thing you need is extra cost when you're experiencing an incident. The 24/7 staffing component, I talked about having 12 security engineers. For most companies, that's really untenable. With the cost of security staffing or security expertise, having just 2 or 3 people is generally really difficult. On top of that, you've got a lot of the big companies like Google or Amazon out there who, if you've got somebody really good, they're going to want to poach them. They want to get them out there. Security staffing is actually one of the areas that there are always unfilled job roles. You can never have a security degree and go unemployed for too long, because really everybody's out there looking for whether it's a cloud security expert or a network security expert, somebody just who's really good at parsing and triaging those logs. All those people are extremely valuable. So keeping those people, making sure to maintain that staff and have that staff trained can be extremely timely or time consuming and difficult. Configuration time to value is something that a lot of people don't really consider. When I talk to customers, a lot of the time I hear, yeah, we've got a SIEM, you know, we bought this Splunk, or we bought Alert Logic, or whatever other systems that are out there, good systems, but we haven't ever configured it, or we've almost got it where we want. The problem is when you have a tool like that and you're starting from scratch, there's a lot of work to be done on making sure that you're getting the right information and not just getting overwhelmed with what we call alert fatigue. So even once you've put a lot of effort into it, once your team has gotten things moving smoothly, when things change about your organization or things change in the security landscape, you've got to update those rules. So there's a lot of work put into configuring the SIEM and continuing to develop those rules. And then lastly, that alert fatigue overall. Even if you do have a good staff in place, you've paid for the log ingestion, your configuration is on top of things, you're really dotting your I's and crossing your T's there, your staff is going to have to review hundreds or even thousands of alerts every month. And so all of those alerts coming in can get tiring. If you're looking at the same thing day in, day out, it's easy to miss things. Kind of if you think about driving and you get that road hypnosis, you pass something and you go, oh, wait, I don't remember the last 5 or 10 miles. I'm glad I drove safely. It's the same thing with somebody just staring at a SIEM window with the same logs coming in. You know, another login from Kentucky, another login from Boston. Those things all start to look the same. And if you don't have strategies for that team to get their rest, cycle them in and out, make sure that they're all happy, they can be fatigued and not really be doing the job that you've hired them to do through not necessarily any fault of their own. The National Institute of Standards and Technology has a framework for cybersecurity that has been followed by a lot of organizations around the globe. It's really been the gold standard for cybersecurity for quite a while. If you look at the pillars there, identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover are the 5 main things that you need to do. It lines up pretty well with some of the things I was talking about as components of a SIEM. You need to know what you have. You need to make sure that you've got methods in place to protect them. You have to detect any bad actors or any potential misconfigurations or issues there. We also have to consider potential insider threat that is accidental. A lot of times the threat comes from inside the network, and it's just because users don't realize they're making some sort of exposure or they're actually exporting data that they shouldn't. You have to have that good response, and you have to be able to recover quickly. Recovery point objective and recovery time objective are a couple of things used when we talk about disaster recovery, and having your SIEM, having your data all in the right place contributes to that quite significantly. Really, with your recovery time, that's how long it takes for you to get back up and running normally after an incident, and recovery point is how far do we have to go back in our backups or with our disaster recovery. If we get hit today, do we lose the whole day or the whole week or more? Some people are doing hourly backups, but it's difficult to maintain those. So that's where having the detection come in early can make sure your recovery point is later on. You don't have to go back nearly as far. NIST 2.0 is a recent update to the National Institute for Standards and Technology cybersecurity framework. And what that adds on top is that center circle governance. It's no longer good enough to say we're doing all these things. We need to prove it, and we need to watch that, making sure that the policies we put in place last year are still working. If you put together a good framework and then you leave it alone, in 6 to 12 months, it's going to be broken. There's going to be things that are slipping through. There are going to be problems. And NIST recognized that. So they've added in a lot of checks and balances to make sure that companies are doing the things they need to do to maintain their security programs and having good checks overall to make sure that reporting is in place, or make sure that additional staff is overseeing some of that. A lot traditionally had rested on the security admin or the IT admin shoulders, and the C-levels of a lot of organizations would say, hey, well, you know, our IT guys have it in hand, everything's fine there, but there wasn't a formal review process. So that's what the governance really introduces, is making sure that you do have good formal review and that you are taking a deep dive into your security on a regular basis. That being said, there's one component that I haven't discussed as much in Recover, and we'll touch on that a little bit more, but having an IR plan. I talked to a number of companies and they said, yeah, we've got an IR plan. But then I ask, you know, when did you update it last? Or where is it stored? Could you put your hands on it today? And I get some ums and ahs at that point. Making sure that that IR plan is up to date is one of those things that sometimes gets overlooked, and that's a big part of the governance as well. So with all of those challenges, why would you want to work with somebody like Arctic Wolf instead of doing it yourself? I can imagine you've probably got some ideas already on what would make things easier by outsourcing, but there are a number of things that we do at Arctic Wolf that can make your security operations center run smoothly, easier, and less expensive. It's definitely not going to be the expense of spending what JP Morgan spends. I think their report for JP Morgan's spend last year was $1 billion on their security operations center. What we saw over a decade ago is that companies were struggling to put together good security programs because of a couple reasons: cost, but also complexity. And so we wanted to be able to alleviate that through services. Arctic Wolf has always been a services first organization. We do have great technology, but the thing that our customers really come to us for, and what the relationship with Arctic Wolf is all about, is the level of service, being able to provide security outcomes and not just security tools or programs. Part of that is broad visibility. So if you look across the bottom underneath our Aurora platform, those are all examples of some of the data we want to pull in. We don't charge based on log ingestion for a big reason, and that's because if we charge based on the number of logs or the log sources that somebody sends to us, they're going to be picking and choosing what they send. At Arctic Wolf, we want to make sure we see everything. So if it has the slightest security relevance, we're not going to charge extra. We want to ingest that. We do use AI and machine learning in a big way at Arctic Wolf. If we didn't, we would definitely be missing out. AI has come a long way just in the last couple of years alone, but if you look at the past couple of decades, it's really started to grow exponentially, and we're on the sharp end of that curve right now. Bad actors are using AI. People are using AI in their everyday life. I'm having to talk to my daughter, who is 10 years old, about why she can't use AI to do her homework. Because it's just that prevalent. However, we don't trust AI. If you've ever seen the Terminator movies, you understand what happens when you give AI unfettered control. I don't know that we're in any risk of that kind of operation happening, but we want to make sure that if the AI makes decisions, we have the chance to double check those. We have a staff of over 1,000 security engineers in our 4 North American Security Operations Center locations. That's our triage team, and that team is double checking all of the alerts that we see, actually putting hands and eyes on every report, every ticket, so that you can know things are really tailored. We also work through a concierge delivery model and through a journey that we do with our customers. So when you sit down with Arctic Wolf, it's not just a point in time evaluation of security. We understand that security's got to continue to move in the right direction over time, and we want to help make that simple for you. There's 5 main services we deliver at Arctic Wolf. Firstly, we do have an endpoint security offering. That is our newest offering. We also work with plenty of other endpoint security tools. So if you have an EDR solution that you're in love with, or that's just working really well for you and the price point is good, we can ingest that and still work with you. However, if you're not happy with what solution you have, we do have other options that we can provide that are pretty robust. Managed detection and response is the service we've been providing for over a decade. That's the first service we brought to market, and that includes 24/7 monitoring. It really is the security information event management replacement. So you don't have to run your own SIEM. We have the SIEM technology on the back end. We'll store all the logs. We take all of that off your shoulders. Managed risk is our vulnerability program. Security awareness training is also available through Arctic Wolf. And then incident response is something else that we do in a slightly different way. You don't have to pay for a big block of hours up front with Arctic Wolf. We have a much less traditional retainer program. But really sticking with kind of what we're talking about today, the security information and event management, the staff piece is probably the biggest one. Making sure that you have good staff that you can trust is something that has really been an issue for companies, even in other areas, IT in general. If you give access to a lot of these back-end systems, you've got secure data. People are willing to pay a lot for that data, so it's a high-risk area. Your concierge security team with Arctic Wolf consists of 3 engineers and analysts that are named to you. They're going to be available during your local normal business hours, and they're there for your planned engagements. They can have scheduled meetings with you whenever you need. There's not a limit there. They give you strategic advice, and then they'll support you through things like audits or incidents that happen. That team is there to look at basically what you have overall. So from that identify pillar of NIST, discovering your network, prioritize what's important, and then we do what are called spiders. That is a security posture in-depth review where we dive in deep, take a look at your technology and make sure the configuration is up to best practice and things are running really smoothly. Of course, there are detours and other things along the way. That concierge team, though, is only half of the team. They're backed up by that triage team, and that's the big part about having 24/7, 365, around the clock, 360 monitoring. You can see some of the certifications. That's certainly not an exhaustive list on the right that our teams hold, but making sure that there's a security expert for whatever technology you're looking at who's on call or right available. If your concierge team doesn't have an expert for, let's say, sonic wall firewalls on that team, there's one around the corner. They can actually stand up and just look over the next set of desks and see somebody who's got that expertise. And that's really one of the benefits of having the largest SOC in North America, second to only the Department of Defense. Another benefit from Arctic Wolf is what we call the network effect. With over 10,000 customers, we're pulling in a lot of data. There's a lot of really interesting trends that we can see, but basically what that means is if you have an issue on your network, we're going to be able to replicate that and help all of our other customers to avoid that. But if we see something in Australia or if we see something in Germany that's happening as a new technique, we're going to be able to proof your network and guard against that, already have detection methods in place before it ever even hits the US. Our Arctic Wolf Labs team contributes heavily to our ability to be agile there. We have a full team who's doing research and development on improving our AI, training our models. Our machine learning strategy is one that is a supervised strategy. If you know much about how machine learning works, there are really 2 main ways. One is kind of Wild West, where you let it go learn whatever it wants to learn on its own, and the other is really closely supervised. We're doing the latter with a full team watching over it. We're engineering new detections. We do have our own internal threat intelligence team and threat intelligence feed, as well as subscribing to 6 external threat feeds. So that's something that would be a big cost for a lot of organizations. We help to make sure we can centralize that and provide that as part of the relationship. And then just overall expertise in making sure your security posture is properly aligned. Having those experts who've seen things across a number of different networks, a number of different verticals, different industries can be invaluable. So really, when it comes to the why run with the pack, this screen kind of sums up the metrics that have been most important to our customers over time. The industry average dwell time is over 200 days. I actually think since the time that this slide was published, it's gone up a bit to about 215, 218. But that average dwell time represents a bad actor sitting on a network and just observing. A lot of people think when a bad actor gets access to a server, they drop some ransomware and try to cash in immediately. That's generally not the case. They find access and they're very quiet and try not to make any waves in the back end because they need to find out where are your important servers. What can we leverage to take advantage of your network? Maybe they can launch additional attacks from your email addresses to compromise your clients or your vendors. But once they've gathered all that data, that's when they do release a payload, whether it is pulling your data and exfiltrating or potentially just ransomware on that endpoint. A lot of threats happen at night, which is part of why you need the 24/7 monitoring. And then, of course, a lot of our customers, as soon as we start working with them, we find latent threats. When we are in about 30 or 40 days, we can say, hey, there's an open port here, or there's malware that's been sitting on this device, or occasionally there's an open access account on your firewall that you don't know about. There's an actual user account that somebody's been using from Bulgaria for the last 6 months. Those are the types of things that we discover for people, and being able to uncover that is paramount before those bad actors can launch anything. Account takeover is a big risk. Everybody's got data on the dark web. You want to know what that data is, and that's something else we'll help with to make sure that we can expose if there are passwords or things like that out there floating around in plain text. And then unpatched vulnerabilities is probably the second largest potential exit there, or potential issue that we see. The biggest one being external vulnerabilities or external access, so credential access. But unpatched vulnerabilities on external surfaces amount to at least a third of the attacks that we see in the US. Lastly, phishing. There are a lot of different ways to catch phishing, but we can make sure that we're catching additional phishing methods by looking through different comprehensive ways of actually investigating what your users are clicking on, where they're going, having deep eyes on what's happening there. So between all of those things, those are the events you really want out of a security operations system. But there are a lot more that we can provide. The Arctic Wolf advantage is in that expertise, and like I said, really in the teams that we provide to give you those outcomes.
Thank you, Chris. I don't see any questions at this point. So we want to say thank you very much to Chris for his presentation. It was beneficial to you. You will get the evaluation here shortly. Take a moment for that. Try to make it fun by pulling out one of the completed ones for the $50 Amazon gift card. And again, there's options there if you want some additional resources around this topic that might be beneficial for you as you kind of plan your next step. With that, I want to say thank you to everyone. I hope you have a great afternoon and a great weekend ahead. Thank you, everyone.